Thank you very much indeed, David and John, and to the sponsors today for having me along to address you. It's a great honour and a privilege. Not quite Glastonbury, ladies and gentlemen, if I may say so, but it's getting up there, you know. Let's see how you perform later on in the afternoon. It's not just a pleasure, it's also a delight to be able to speak with all the massed ceremony and personal authority of a man who's been in the job for 8 days. Before that, I should tell you a little bit about myself. I have a somewhat mixed bag. I'm a very unusual politician. I came into politics at the age of 47, having actually done some other stuff in the private sector and also in the public sector and in the third sector. So hopefully bringing some experience to the different roles that I've had. I spent 5 years on the Treasury Select Committee. I was then the chair of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee. Last year, I was the Minister for Energy in the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And I'm going to try and bring some financial understanding, some cultural understanding, some energy and some industrial strategy to this role. Ladies and gentlemen, to see the potential for northern transport, you only have to look at what transport has achieved for the north in the past. The great towns and cities of the north were built on transport. The canals, the railways, the dock systems invented here sparked the Industrial Revolution, turning the north into the economic capital of the world. The first British canal system ran from Worsley to Manchester, backed by the third Duke of Bridgewater, who wanted to transport his coal and sell it at the highest possible price to the manufacturers of Manchester. And as a new transport minister, it would do me no harm at all to point out that there's an excellent book published in 1983 by one Christopher Grayling on the third Duke of Bridgewater and the Bridgewater Canal. And of course, he happens to be my boss, the Secretary of State for Transport. These towns and cities are still the region's great strength. But in recent decades, economic power has shifted to the world's mega cities, Tokyo, New York, Beijing, and London, where skills and commerce are pooled in a single place. We know that the North has all the talented people it needs to trade and compete with these cities on its own terms. But to work together, the North must be properly linked together and linked to the world as well. It must become a single, strong, and coherent economic region. That is why this government is investing billions of pounds in northern transport. To help the process, my colleagues have set a clear target to try to increase the long-term rate of economic growth in the north to equal or exceed the UK's average growth rate. But ladies and gentlemen, the north was a pioneer, not merely in canals, but in railways as well. Lest we forget, the first intercity railway ran from Liverpool to Manchester. The London and North Eastern Railway began pioneering work electrifying the line between Manchester and Sheffield in the 1930s, a route that many would say should never have been closed. But the news has been better in recent years. In 2014, the government knocked 15 minutes off the journey from Liverpool to Manchester by upgrading the track. In 2015, it completed electrification of the route between Liverpool and Wigan, securing quicker and more reliable journeys. In 2016, it awarded new Northern and Transpennine Express rail franchises that should deliver new build trains, more than 500 brand new carriages, room for 40,000 more passengers, and 2,000 extra services a week. The government is upgrading northern stations, such as the rebuild of Manchester Victoria, completed in 2015, and with local partners, it has built new stations at Kirkstall Forge, Appley Bridge, and Low Moor. And in last year's budget, my colleagues committed £60 million to develop plans for Northern Powerhouse Rail, or HS3. We are, and I suspect I will be as the Minister, very grateful for the work that Transport for the North is doing to take these plans forward. That's just rail. As for roads, the North was a pioneer as well. The Preston Bypass was the first British motorway, ladies and gentlemen, opened on the 5th of December 1958 by none other than Harold Macmillan, the Prime Minister himself, and costing a whopping £3 million. If only. Today, I think we can all agree that the North needs a faster, less congested road network. That means reliable motorways offering journey times of a minute per mile, properly linked to the North's ports and airports. So the government have committed £2.9 billion of road improvements across the North for the period 2015 to 2021. That includes over 40 major projects, 4 have already opened to traffic: the new A556 Knutsford to Bowden dual carriageway just south of here, smart motorway upgrades of the M1 in Derbyshire and south of Leeds, and widening of the A1 Western Bypass between Coalhouse and Metro Centre, west of Newcastle and Gateshead. Construction is underway on upgrading stretches of the M60, M1 and M6 to being smart motorways. Many more strategic network projects are in planning or underway in the North, and I am delighted that Jeremy Bloom, Highways England's Network Planning Director, is here to talk more about those plans later this afternoon. And then there's local schemes, those overseen by local authorities. We've supported major local transport improvements in the North, from the £600 million Mersey Gateway Bridge due to open this autumn to the £17 million in funding confirmed in April for public transport improvements in Leeds. So that's something, and let's not forget the highway maintenance renewal right across the North that will be funding this financial year, over £170 million to help restore stressed local road infrastructure. I wish I could say, ladies and gentlemen, that the North was a pioneer in international aviation. I haven't been able to find the relevant detail. I'm sure it's there, but hopefully, in a way, I'm also sure it isn't, because that prize should go to Heston Aerodrome, the first London airport, which was built by my grandfather, Nigel Norman. But that's the only area I can find in which the North has not been a transport pioneer. Investment by airlines today in new routes and airports in better facilities is a sign that the private sector has confidence in the North. So it's great to see the hundreds of millions of pounds being invested in northern airports, including upgrades at Manchester, Liverpool, John Lennon, and Leeds, Bradford. And it's also good to see Manchester Airport adding new routes to Beijing and San Francisco. Finally, of course, our northern ports are vital gateways for exports and imports, providing access to local markets, to global markets, and supporting vital industries such as car manufacturing and energy production. The North is home to around a quarter of the UK's population, yet northern ports accommodate 35% or so of port throughput, 56% of UK rail freight tonnage, and 35% of road freight tonnage. So they are punching well above their weight per capita. And it's a sign of confidence in the manufacturing and buying power of the North that in many places their owners are investing hundreds of millions of pounds in new container facilities, biomass stores, or new logistics developments. Northern ports are vital to the Northern Powerhouse project, and they deserve our support. That's why the government is improving the road links to the Port of Liverpool and the Port of Hull. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, the Northern Powerhouse can only really succeed if it's led by you and your colleagues and local people, by local people who know their economies best. That is why we have created Transport for the North to represent all of the North's local and combined authorities. I'm very grateful that last week TfN published the evidence it will use to inform its strategic transport plan, which we look forward to seeing in the autumn. We're also keen to work with the region's newly elected mayor, including my old friend Andy Burnham, and it's great that Andy will be speaking later here today. And finally, I'm pleased we've managed to get the Bus Services Act through right at the end of the last Parliament. It gives mayors of our largest cities the power to franchise out bus services where doing so can deliver real improvements for passengers. So then, what to say in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen? Simply this: the North has been a pioneer across almost all major modes of transport. There's a huge amount going on here at the moment. I can see that on 8 days of personal experience. We all know that this region is capable of. Just look at its history. But I want to look at the future more than at the past. The Northern Powerhouse is a great opportunity to be grasped. I urge you, I urge us all, I urge the North to take that opportunity and make the most of it. I and my colleagues look forward to working with you to help make the North of England the huge economic success it has been, which it deserves to be, and which we all want to see once again. Thank you very much indeed.
Time for a couple of questions. Are there any questions from the floor before I put one or two to the Minister? Please. please do show your hands. I'll come to you. Yeah, there's one at the side there, got the microphone next to you.
Minister, we're getting fantastic investment in the electrification of the railway system, particularly in the northwest of England, but why are we being subjected to second-hand rolling stock being cascaded from the southeast of England? Our money's as good as their money, so why can't we have new trains on new railways?
Well, thank you very much indeed for that question. Well, I used to teach at University College London. When someone asked me an impossible question, the line was always the same. Thank you, sir, for your contribution. Greatly appreciated. And then turn quickly to the next one. In this case, I'm going to vary the response by saying I agree with David, or possibly I agree with Paul Maynard, who is responsible for rail in the area that, in my department. The answer to that is, I can't tell you the answer because I'm not familiar with the specific circumstances that you describe. What I can tell you is that the government is absolutely committed to supporting a rail infrastructure and has, I can see even from a distance and at short notice, the kind of commitment my colleagues are making to invest in it. And of course, rail infrastructure is particularly problematic because of issues of cost management and strategic prioritization. And so I've no doubt the picture's a lot more complicated than even I can suggest in a few minutes.
In terms of the specifics of your brief when you were appointed, albeit 8 days ago, are there specifics in your remit, priorities that you've got to attack first?
Yes, sure. So you won't see this, and no one would know this because it's not on the DFT website yet, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm actually the roads minister. In that role, I am going to be thinking very hard about not just new infrastructure investment, but also making the best of the infrastructure investment we've got at the moment, road servicing, potholes, smart motorways, better integration with the local networks, pinch points, and that's before you get onto bus services, cycling, other road users. But those are the principal areas in which I'll be focusing, and I don't think I'm giving away any secrets if I say that the Rail Minister will continue to be Paul Maynard, and therefore he'll be specifically engaged in those questions.
And in terms of the Northern Powerhouse agenda, have you met yet with the new Northern Powerhouse Minister, Jake Berry?
Well, yes, I saw Jake last week. We'll be having much more detailed conversations about these specific proposals, and I'll be meeting with some of the key folks here today after this session.
Okay. Can you tell us anything about what was discussed?
I think it would be hopelessly indiscreet to discuss anything at these very early stages of discussion. I think Jake is getting on top of his brief just as I am as mine, but I think he's as excited and interested as it, and he is as passionate about the North as anyone could be.
And finally, a lot of people were expecting something about the next stage of HS2 to be committed in the Queen's speech, that being north of Crewe. We've heard about Birmingham to Crewe, but can you tell us anything about the timing of announcements around that?
Yeah, I think there'll be an announcement. Again, it's on the Wales side of the portfolio, but I think there'll be an announcement before too long. The Queen's speech, as you will have detected, is a 2-year programme, and it absolutely doesn't include everything that the government necessarily wants to do, but it's focused on key bills, and in particular on Brexit.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you. Join me